You know that feeling when you make a decision and it should be finished, boxed off in your head, but your brain doesn't leave it alone. You'll send an email and you have to reread it 12 times, or you agree to a plan but then wake up the next morning and you think you chose the wrong option, or you decide that you're going to have that hard conversation and then you keep rehearsing it in your head so many times you feel like you've already done it and you still haven't said a word. In today's episode of Let's Talk Confidence, we're going to look at what I call the decision spiral and how it's impacting your leadership and what you can do to quiet down this internal negative voice. Welcome to Let's Talk Confidence, the first and last place you need to go to build long-lasting confidence. I'm your host and coach, Josh Sutton. Please do give the podcast a follow, drop a quick review, share this episode, share it with somebody who you know lives in this I'll decide when I feel sure mode all the time. Helps us grow, helps more people build confidence that actually lasts. All right, let's dive in. Let's get something pretty clear from the start of this episode. You're not indecisive because you're lazy or incapable. You're most likely indecisive because you care. You're responsible. You're trying to get it right. And because you care, your brain really tries to protect you by thinking harder, analysing more, predicting more, because it wants control. And before you know it, you're in what I call a decision spiral. And leaders, you will know this feeling well, most probably, as well as business owners, typical people that this happens to. And here's the thing, you won't spiral on every single decision, you'll just spiral on the ones that expose you. Like choosing between two brands of washing up liquid. Probably pretty easy. What to have for lunch? Fine, but raise your prices or apply for a role, set a particular boundary with somebody, maybe give some honest feedback or speak up in a meeting, end a relationship, these kind of things. Suddenly your brain becomes like a mini Sherlock Holmes. It wants evidence all the time. It wants certainty. It craves it. It wants that guarantee. And why? Because those decisions come with emotional and social risk. They can lead to judgments, they can lead to rejection, it can lead you to feeling like you're being wrong in public. And for a lot of people, being wrong doesn't just mean like, oh, never mind. It's this whole narrative, I'm not good enough. It means I'll lose respect, means that I realise I'm winging it. Shock horror. And even without you realising what's going on in your own head a lot of the time. So your brain tries to keep you safe by keeping you in this thinking mode. And I'm going to say this just as straight to the point as I can, because it matters. Overthinking is not intelligence. Overthinking is fear. Sorry. It's your nervous system really trying to avoid discomfort. The decision spiral has a quite simple pattern. You've got a decision that shows up that you have to make, and your brain imagines danger, catastrophizes it. You then try to think your way into certainty, and you delay, feel a bit of relief because of that, and then the same decision comes back, but now it's even more difficult to deal with because you still haven't moved anywhere with it. The stress builds. It feels productive, this delaying, but it isn't. It's like you sitting in the car with you revving the engine, telling yourself you're travelling somewhere. You're not. You're burning fuel. Nothing more. Not actually going anywhere. Now, why does this matter so much, especially if you're a leader? Because leadership is decisions and following through. That's what leadership is. It's not feelings or perfect plans. It's making decisions. That's what your job is. Now, every time you delay, you pay for it in some way, in energy, in sleep, in momentum, in missed opportunities. You pay in your team's trust because people feel uncertainty. You know this. Your team sense when you're more hesitant than you should be. When a leader's hesitant, everyone else becomes hesitant too. I've seen it with leaders who constantly avoid one hard conversation after another, and they avoid it for months. A conversation they know needs to happen, so they let it keep building and they wait for the right time or the right situation, but it only gets worse. And your standards start to drop. And resentment builds and the leader often just becomes more stressed. And the team gets confused and everyone can feel it. All because one decision kept being reopened and not actually made again and again and again. So what's actually underneath this spiral? Well, it's not the decision. Like much of the time, it's the story. You're not scared of choosing, of making the decision. You're scared of what choosing might say about you. Because if your internal story is, I'm only valuable when I get it right, then decisions are really quite dangerous. They create the possibility of being wrong. And in your mind, being wrong becomes being unworthy. You might label it as high standards or being professional or just being cautious. But very often the story is, if I mess this up, I'll be judged. And if I'm judged, I'll be rejected. And if I'm rejected, I'm not safe. You can see how it builds along this story. That's like the old tribal brain not really serving you. You don't need to hate yourself for it. It's very natural. But you do need to take responsibility for it, because it will run your life and your leadership if you don't. So, how do you break it? I'm going to use a structure that I often come back to in my coaching, which is identity, intention, implementation. Because if you only try to fix this with productivity hacks or little tricks and tips, you'll become a really organized spiraler. Isn't great, really, is it? It's probably not what you're after. So, start with identity. You've got to change what being wrong means. So here's the first question to ask yourself when you can feel yourself spiraling. What am I making this mean about me? Not what am I deciding, but what does this decision threaten about my identity? If I speak up and they disagree, what am I making this mean about me? If I set a boundary and people are annoyed, what am I making that mean about me? If I take a risk and it doesn't work, what does that say about me? Question the story all the time. Write it down and be really honest with yourself. It's usually going to be some form of, I'm not good enough, or I'll be found out. There'll be some kind of fear behind it. And now you get to the change. You have to change the meaning of being wrong. If you're not sure where to start with this. A line something like, being wrong isn't a final verdict, it's just feedback. If you can genuinely start living from that line instead, the whole game changes. Because then a wrong decision, it isn't some kind of identity death. It's information. It's something to work with. It's part of just getting better. I've found that confident people aren't the ones who never get it wrong. They're the ones who recover really quickly from a setback because they don't turn mistakes into a form of self-hate. They adjust without falling apart. So the identity that you're building is this. I can make decisions without guarantees because I trust myself to respond. That's what self-trust looks like and sounds like. It's not certainty, but it's self-trust and the ability to respond. Next, intention. Decide what matters before you decide. Most spirals happen because you're trying to decide without being really certain what you're deciding on. You're asking, what's the right choice? When you should be asking, what matters most here? When you don't define what matters, your brain will just default to whichever the loudest fear is. And the loudest fear is often judgment. So before you choose a decision, write down some decision criteria. Write down 3, not 10, just 3. So let's say, for example, say you're deciding whether to take on a new opportunity. Your criteria might be 1, does it move me towards the life and work I actually want? Number 2, does it stretch me in a really healthy way, not in a way it's going to burn me out? And 3, does it align with my values and my standards? And now you're not choosing based on mood, you're choosing based on what's mattered that you've agreed with yourself before. That's the really important part. And that's how you stopped being dragged around day by fear. And finally, implementation. A simple system that stops you constantly redeciding. Even when you do the mindset work, your brain will still try to reopen that decision. That's why you need a process. So here's something you can use. I call it the decision protocol. It is boring, I'm not going to lie. And it's simple and it works. Step 1, Name the decision in one sentence. So I am deciding whether to X or Y. If you can't name it clearly, you probably can't solve it clearly. So name it. Step 2, decide if it's reversible. Most decisions are. Not choosing a life sentence most of the time, you're just choosing a direction. And if it's reversible, speed matters more than perfection. Choose, act, and then adjust. Step 3, set a deadline and a default. I will decide by Thursday at 5 p.m. And then pick what happens if you don't decide. For example, if I don't decide, I will say no. Or if I don't decide, I will book the meeting. Defaults remove procrastination because they stop the endless maybe. Step 4, choose the option that fits your criteria and just take the first domino action needed within 24 hours, not in your head, but in real life. Send the message, book the call, tell the person, start the draft, whatever it is, take some action because action converts thinking into actual movement, which is what you need. And step 5, set a review date. This is what stops the going over the same decision again and again. You tell yourself, I'm not allowed to reopen this until this review date. And for some things, that might be a week. For some things, it might be a month. For a habit, it might be 14. Whatever it is, you decide, you take some action on it, and then you review. That's how we want to be leading in our decision making. Now, let's talk about a potential elephant in the room. The decision spiral is often powered by one fear, which is being disliked. And I've talked about this before, but if you make a decision, look, someone might disagree with you. If you set a boundary, someone might be annoyed. If you raise your prices, some people might say no. If you lead with your standards, someone might complain. And your brain hates all of that because it wants harmony, it doesn't want conflict, it wants acceptance. But being disliked is not danger, it's the cost of leadership. It's just a part of it. If you want a life that's actually yours, you're going to have to disappoint some people some of the time. You're going to be misunderstood. You're going to be judged sometimes. If you try to avoid all of that, you'll just avoid owning and living your own life. So part of breaking the spiral is really building tolerance for discomfort, not by doing anything dramatic. It's just by doing the small things. Saying no without the essay afterwards, sharing an opinion in a meeting and just letting it be. Sending the message without rereading it 50 times, once for spelling and whatnot, and then you send it. You have the conversation, even if your heart's going a bit faster. You make the decision and then go for a walk instead of just mentally redoing it for 3 hours afterwards. Every time you do this, you're training your own mind to think in a certain way. You're teaching it, I can handle this. And that really is what confidence is. It's evidence that you can cope, that you trust yourself enough. Let me give you a real world example. Let's say a leader knows that they need to give some feedback to someone who's really starting to slip. And the spiral begins. What if they take it badly? What if they cry? What if they hate me? What if I look too harsh? And underneath is the story, if they dislike me, I'm unsafe. So, do the protocol. Name the decision. I'm deciding whether to have the feedback conversation this week or avoid it. Criteria. Does avoiding this make it worse? Do I care about standards? Is clarity kinder than resentment? Some good questions to ask in this scenario. Is it reversible? Yes, you can repair a conversation. When's the deadline? I'm going to book it in tomorrow midday. First domino, sends the calendar invites. Review. After the conversation, reflect on what works and what you do differently next time. That's it. You move from fear to leadership. Now, I want to be clear on something. This isn't about making perfect decisions. Perfect, quite frankly, is a fantasy. This is about becoming the kind of person who can decide and cope. Because the real confidence is not getting it right every single time. It's knowing you can handle it if it's messy. That's real confidence. So here's your challenge for this week, if you want to put this into practice. Pick one decision that you've been avoiding. Just one, not 10. The one that keeps coming back and circling in your head. Just write at the top of a page in one sentence. And then answer these 5 questions. Number 1, what am I making this mean about me? Number 2, what are my 3 criteria for a good decision here? Number 3, is it reversible? Number 4, what is my deadline and my default? Number 5, what is the first domino action I'll take within the next 24 hours? And then do it. And when your brain, and it will, tries to tell you to reopen it, remind yourself, I'm not redeciding. I'm just doing it. I'm taking action. I'll review on the data set. And if you do this consistently, you'll feel calmer, move a lot faster. People are going to trust you more because you'll stop burning your energy and everybody else's energy on these mental loops, and you'll build something actually quite rare. Self-trust. And the kind that means that you can make a decision, take the hit if needed, adjust and keep going without your own self-worth being up for negotiation. That's all for today. If you want to build this kind of identity level confidence properly so you can stop guessing, stop second guessing and actually start leading with calm clarity, then head to joshsuttoncoaching.com to find out more. I'm your coach, Josh Sutton. Let's talk confidence.